They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS.
Yeah.
And then they shoot you with it.
Oh, so that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
The Eazy-E thing.
No, it was not true to the story.
Okay.
Here's why it was not true to the story. That last 2 years of his life, Eazy-E was smoking hot. Even though he was sick, he was happy as hell. He had Bone Thugs and Harmony.
I don't like how it was portrayed that Eazy-E was like broke and like stressing, like when he died, because like we didn't get that from him at all.
One of the most talked about parts of Straight Outta Compton was Eazy-E's final days. In the film, there's a dramatic scene where Eazy breaks down in tears after being diagnosed with HIV.
It's just a matter of time. Look, I'm truly sorry.
Now, while some people felt that moment and the film in general was a bit over the top, it turns out there's a lot more to Eazy's death than what the movie showed. Let's dive in. Suge Knight. So over 20 years ago, Suge Knight went on Jimmy Kimmel Live and said something that still raises eyebrows to this day. He basically implied that Eazy-E didn't just randomly contract AIDS, but that he might have been injected with AIDS-infected blood. Technology is so high, he said. If you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. They've got this new thing. They get blood from someone with AIDS and they shoot you with it. That's a slow death, the Eazy-E thing.
See, technology is so high, right?
Right.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS.
Yeah.
And then they shoot you with it.
Oh, so that seems bad.
That's a slow death. The Eazy-E thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fast forward to a more recent interview on The Art of Dialogue, Suge was asked if he really meant what he said back then or if he was just trying to get some attention, and like always, he dodged a straight answer. He said he didn't want to incriminate himself and refused to confirm or deny anything, but he did talk a bit more about what happened leading up to Eazy's death. According to Suge, Eazy wasn't showing any signs of being sick before he passed. He said Eazy and Jerry Heller had just gone in for a routine checkup, then all of a sudden, he gets a shot, something Suge described as simple, like B12, and the next thing you know, they're telling him he's got AIDS. And just like that, shortly after, he's gone.
Jerry told Eazy he should go to the doctor just for a checkup, physical. You didn't have one. Next thing you know, Eric got a shot. Supposed to make him feel better. Next thing you know, they say Eric got AIDS. Next thing you know, he's dead.
And Suge wasn't the only one saying stuff like this. Crazy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony said those rumors had already been floating around before Suge ever said it on TV.
He's like, now you just get somebody and get blood from them if they have HIV, and then you put it in the arm.
That's something that had been floating around like for years, like before he even said that, man.
So maybe there's some truth to it, who knows, but what's clear is that this whole theory was never shown in Straight Outta Compton. In the movie, we get that one emotional scene where Eazy-E finds out about his illness and breaks down crying. A lot of fans found it touching and real because, yeah, anyone would be devastated getting that kind of news. But according to the people who were actually with Eazy in his last days, that's not how it went down at all. Bone Thugs and Harmony, who were by his side until the very end, said Eazy wasn't the type to sit around feeling sorry for himself. They said he didn't cry, didn't mope, and didn't let the diagnosis crush him. He took it like a man.
No, it was not true to the story.
Okay.
Here's why it was not true to the story. That last 2 years of his life, Eazy-E was smoking hot. Even though he was sick, he was happy as hell. He had Bone Thugs and Harmony.
I don't like how it was portrayed that Eazy-E was like broke and like stressing, like when he died, because like we didn't get that from him at all. Like Eazy was riding on the high because he knew he had us, and he knew we was about to ride. We was about to bring him back.
Of course he was sad. After all, he had a lot to live for. He was still young, on top of his game, and building something huge. Anyone in his shoes would feel it. But that overly dramatic version the movie showed, according to the people who knew him best, that wasn't easy. It seemed like the filmmakers took some creative liberties to make the moment more emotional for viewers. And while it made for a powerful scene, it just didn't match what actually happened or who Eazy really was. And truth is, that wasn't even the only thing people have pointed out about how Eazy-E was portrayed in the film. Straight Outta Compton versus real life. Another glaring issue in the movie was the claim that Eazy was broke during his later years. The film shows him supposedly downgrading his lifestyle, moving into a smaller house and struggling financially. But according to people like BG Knockout, this couldn't be further from the truth.
The fact that they try to make him look like he was broke, he bought weed and all this shit, finna start slanging, all that shit bullshit.
In fact, Eazy was anything but broke. His company, Ruthless Records, was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He had a thriving bank account, the #1 group and album in the country, and multiple properties, not some downsized single house as the movie suggests.
His company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. His bank account was still flooded. He had Bone, he had the #1 group. You know what I'm saying? The #1 album, like.
To put things in perspective, Eazy-E was far from broke when he passed. He was reportedly worth around $50 million, with Ruthless Records alone valued at about $30 million. He had multiple homes in high-end neighborhoods like Norwalk, Topanga, Westlake, Calabasas, and Woodland Hills. That Woodland Hills spot, it was next level, sitting high up with killer views and tucked away from all the city chaos. But Eazy wasn't just stacking money for himself. He was also a devoted father who went all out for his kids. He reportedly spent over $20,000 a year per child on private Christian Montessori schools and shelled out more than $50,000 a month on child support. And that's not even counting the birthday blowouts, designer clothes, jewelry, and the latest toys. His son, Eric Jr., even shared memories of them playing Sonic the Hedgehog together. So yeah, Eazy made sure his kids were living good and felt his presence. Outside of being a rapper and a dad, Eazy was a real businessman who stayed looking for new ventures. He teamed up with Rob Liefeld, the guy who co-created Deadpool, to work on a comic book series called The Hood. He also developed a line of speakers called Eazy-E's Bass Shakers, had ideas for a video game, a movie script titled Smiling Faces, and even had plans to open up his own film studio. And let's not forget his Ruthless radio show on K-Days 92.3 The Beat, which popped off in 1994 and quickly became the top show in its time slot. According to declassified FBI files, Ruthless Records was pulling in over $10 million a month in revenue around the time Eazy passed in '95. That made Ruthless the first independent label to outsell the major players in the game. And even after his death, his empire kept growing. His widow still owns the NWA catalog, and old Ruthless artists are still sending royalty money straight to his estate. Thanks to streaming, Eazy's music and business moves are going to be making money for generations to come. So when Straight Outta Compton tried to paint Eazy as broke, it didn't sit right. According to BG Knockout, that portrayal was intentional. He believes Dre and the others behind the film tried to twist Eazy's legacy, making him look like he fell off when in reality, Eazy was living like a king.
I don't get like why they put that in the movie. So to me, it seemed like they was trying to skew his legacy.
Another side of Eazy that Straight Outta Compton completely left out was just how selfless and giving he really was. The people who truly knew him always talk about how big his heart was, how he had the soft spot for folks the world tended to ignore or forget about. Whether it was the little things or big, meaningful gestures, Eazy was always showing love and looking out for others. Back in his neighborhood, he'd do things like buy ice cream for the kids in Compton or spend time skateboarding with the younger ones in Calabasas, but that was just scratching the surface. During the holidays, Eazy would go all out, dressing up as Santa Claus to hand out gifts and making sure families in need had turkeys on Thanksgiving. And it wasn't just his own neighborhood he looked after. He'd take kids of his employees on trips to Disneyland and drop hundreds of dollars on merch just to make sure they had a day they'd never forget. Eazy was big on giving kids opportunities they might not normally get. He'd sponsor rodeos to help inner-city youth explore new experiences, and he'd even go talk to incarcerated teens to encourage them to turn their lives around.
Do you think this is an achievement for all the inner-city kids to be here?
Yeah, I think so. I know so.
He wasn't just offering words either. He put his money where his mouth was. Eazy donated to causes he really believed in, like the City of Hope Memorial Hospital and the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and he was also involved with athletes and entertainers for kids. His charitable efforts even earned him an invite to a 2-day fundraiser hosted by President George H.W. Bush in '91. But if there's one story that really shows who Eazy was deep down, it's the one Cocaine told. Cocaine, from the group Above the Law, shared how his twin babies were born premature and needed an expensive surgery to survive. Eazy found out, canceled a major business meeting, drove all the way from Calabasas to Fontana, and handed Cocaine $30,000 on the spot to cover the medical bills. No questions asked. "I honor that brother to this day," Cocaine said.
Before my kids was born, they were born prematurely, twins. They was about to be born, they needed to be born 7 months. So they needed a major operation. Eric had an important meeting to go to, a deal breaker meeting. Eric Wright canceled his meeting, cashed them people out $30,000 cash here.
For so many people, Eazy wasn't just a boss or a business partner. He was a mentor, protector, and a friend. He had a way of seeing the potential in people that they couldn't see in themselves. He encouraged them to aim higher and be better than they ever thought possible. But the movie didn't show this side of him at all. Instead, it painted Eazy as a pushover, which couldn't be further from the truth. One of the most ridiculous moments in Straight Outta Compton is the scene where Suge Knight supposedly intimidates Eazy into signing over Dr. Dre's contract to Death Row Records. In the movie, Suge is shown slapping Eazy around and bullying him into giving up Dre.
I think you're gonna stay here for a while.
Fuck you, Suge!
But anyone who really knew Eazy knew this portrayal was pure fiction. Eazy wasn't the kind of guy you could just push around.
Eazy wasn't the type of dude you can just say anything to, talk to any kind of way. So the fact that they made him look more docile than he was, I didn't like it.
He had deep connections with some of the most serious figures out there, including the Crips and the Mexican Mafia. Eazy was also heavily tied to the Southside Crips, who were a major force in Compton. One of his key connections was with Keefe D, a well-known figure in the Compton gang scene. Keefe D's family even owned Compton Hydraulics, a car shop on Long Beach Boulevard in Compton. This wasn't just a place for car repairs, it was a hub where street culture, music, and business overlapped. Eazy grew up right in the middle of Southside Crip territory in the Kelly Park Compton Crip neighborhood. His close ties to Keefe D's brother, Kevin, made him part of that circle in a way that went beyond music. In 1993, Eazy filmed the video for his iconic diss track, Real G's. The video is packed with imagery that ties Eazy to the Southside Crips. One standout car, known as the Gangster of Love, was said to belong to either a prominent Southside Crip named Big Spank or someone from Keefe D's family. The people featured in the video weren't just extras, they were part of Eazy's world, some of them throwing up Southside Crip signs, rocking Seattle Mariners hats, a known Crip emblem with the S for Southside, and decked out in blue, the gang's color. Eazy himself sported a blue Mariners cap with a yellow S, cementing his affiliation in plain view. Both BG Knockout and Keefe D have dismissed the idea of Suge ever laying a hand on Eazy.
Eazy getting beat up by Suge
you know.
and his people.
You don't want that problem.
Well,
I wouldn't want that problem.
For them, the slap story is pure fiction. After all, Suge Knight would have been risking a war with the Southside Crips, and that's not a gamble anyone would want to take. Eazy also had connections to the Mexicans, and years later, he would go on to cement that connection in a big way when he signed Brownside, a Chicano rap group led by the late Toker, as well as another groundbreaking Mexican rapper, Kid Frost. At a time when Latino rap wasn't taken seriously in the mainstream, Eazy-E saw something others didn't. He was ahead of his time and foresaw that the Chicano rap movement was going to be a force to reckon with. Brownside in particular was something special.
He had already signed the Brownside, and then he ended up signing Kid Frost, and we ended up working on the Brownside record, you know what I mean? And you know, that was his thing. He had that mind state about it because he knew that was coming. Like I said, the guy was ahead of his time.
Under Eazy's guidance, they became pioneers of Chicano rap, laying down the blueprint for how the genre would sound and feel. But Brownside wasn't just another rap group trying to capitalize on a trend. These guys were real gangsters, straight out of the streets with stories to tell. Everything they rapped about was authentic. There were no exaggerations, no clout-chasing antics, just raw, real-life experiences that reflected who they were.
And I'm straight gang-related.
One of the most legendary stories about Brownside's loyalty to Eazy comes from the height of the infamous Ruthless Records vs. Death Row Records beef. The war between Eazy-E and Suge Knight was no joke. Death Row was known for being aggressive, and Suge Knight's reputation for intimidation was well earned. But as Toker later explained, Brownside played a huge role in keeping Eazy safe during this time. According to Toker, he and the Brownside crew showed up at Ruthless Records right when things started getting heated between Eazy and Suge. Toker described it as almost fate, like destiny brought them there at just the right time. Death Row's crew had assumed they could overpower Eazy because they thought he was alone and vulnerable, but they were wrong. Brownside was already there, ready to ride for Eazy without hesitation. Toker said they let Eazy know straight up, "We're here and we're ready to back you up no matter what."
We got to Ruthless when the Death Row Ruthless beef was cracking. So they thought they were gonna overpower my boy because my boy was by himself. But you know, Destiny took Toker and the brown side clique to Ruthless.
Toker said that during one of their conversations, they told Eazy straight up, if there's anyone you want gone, just say the word. Eazy, being the kind of guy he was, tried to brush it off. He told them it's not like that, man, trying to downplay the situation, but Toker wasn't having it. He looked Eazy in the eye and said, nah, it's exactly like that. Toker made it clear to Eazy that if he just mentioned a name, they'd handle it, and he wasn't bluffing. Toker said they had young'uns, kids who were 15 or 16 years old that were more than ready to step up and do the job. In Toker's words, at most, they'll let them out when they're 22, so you don't gotta worry about a thing. That's how serious they were.
All right, don't worry about it, E. I'm gonna send my little young juvenile torpedo so they can go ahead and do YA life. They're gonna let my boys out when they're 22 years old. Don't worry about it.
After that conversation, things between Eazy and the Mexican community became even tighter. Eazy knew he had an army behind him. Wherever he went, fancy restaurants, important meetings, or events, he'd call up Brownside and his Mexican homies to roll with him. Dr. Dre. Another thing that felt way off in Straight Outta Compton was how Dr. Dre was painted as this almost superhero-like figure in the rap world. It just doesn't add up when you look at the full picture. A lot of people have called out how the movie conveniently left out the darker side of Dre, especially his history of violence toward women. One glaring example is what happened with Dee Barnes, a presenter on the Fox TV show Pump It Up, which covered hip-hop culture and often featured big-name rappers. By the time the Ice Cube drama kicked off, Dee had already interviewed NWA several times. She was familiar with the whole crew and had covered them on her show for years.
Ice Cube of NWA will be hanging out with him and all his homies at his house.
We'll be back after these commercials or breaks or cuts or whatever.
Whatever. Don't go anywhere.
But once Cube left, things shifted. NWA responded by dissing him hard on their track, 100 Miles and Runnin', making it clear they weren't just going to let him walk away quietly. According to Dee Barnes herself, when she got the group back on Pump It Up to talk about their latest moves, the energy was tense from the start. Every question she asked led to a jab at Ice Cube, and it got so heated that the production team had to edit out some of the harsher parts just to make the interview airable. But here's where things took a turn. When the episode finally aired, it included not only the NWA interview, but also another clip filmed earlier on the set of Boys in the Hood with Yo-Yo, who was Ice Cube's friend and collaborator. Unexpectedly, Ice Cube crashed the interview and took the opportunity to diss NWA, using their own lyrics to throw shade right back at them. To make matters worse, Cube even made fun of the DOC, who was close to Dr. Dre and had recently suffered a car accident that permanently damaged his voice.
Ice Cube on Pump It Up. I got all suckers 100 miles and one. I'd like to give a shout out to the DLC. Y'all can play.
For the record, even at the time, Dee Barnes said she didn't think they should air that segment, but as just a presenter, she didn't have the final say over the edit. Unfortunately, the final edit sensationalized the story by playing the two clips back to back. After Ice Cube's interview aired, Dee turned to the camera and mentioned that she's always in the middle of controversy. This was a likely reflexive response to an awkward situation, but in the edit, it looked like she was stoking the flames, encouraging the beef between Ice Cube and NWA, and positioning herself right in the middle of it. After the interview fiasco, some time went by, but Dr. Dre and Dee Barnes eventually crossed paths again. At a Def Jam Records party, a drunken Dr. Dre spotted Dee Barnes. Still furious about how the interview had been presented, he flew into a blind rage. According to a Rolling Stone reporter, Alan Light, in an article called Beating Up the Charts, Dre picked her up by the hair and began slamming her head and the right side of her body repeatedly against a brick wall near the stairway. His bodyguard held off the crowd with a gun, ensuring no one could intervene. Dre then tried to throw her down the stairs but failed. Undeterred, he began kicking her in the ribs and hands. Dee managed to escape and ran into the women's restroom, but Dre followed her, grabbed her from behind by the hair again, and proceeded to punch her in the back of the head.
They grabbed me by my hair and started slamming me up against the wall. It's a painful and traumatic experience.
Dee Barnes tried to sue Dr. Dre for $22.75 million, but the case was settled out of court. Besides Dee Barnes, plenty of other women who have also called out Dre for his behavior, which just adds to the irony of him being part of a movie that twists Eazy-E's story while ignoring his own issues. But regardless of how twisted Straight Outta Compton was in its portrayal of Eazy, his legacy still stands strong today. No amount of creative editing can erase the mark he left on hip-hop and the culture as a whole.